Hey, welcome to RomingerRadio. This is Carl Rominger, host, 717-916-5189. Again, 717-916-5189. And I want to thank Michael for that lead-in music. Thank you very much. We'll try using it again at the end, of course. I mean, why wouldn't we? Might as well have fun with it. 717-916-5189 is a talk line number. I had two calls at 5:55. You might be the first guy in the show. I'm going to be the first guy in the show. I'm going to call you. I don't answer the phone before 6 o'clock, okay? It's just the way it's going to be. So you guys want to call in, 717-916-5189. Again, the losers who have nothing to do but call at 5:55, feel free to, if you're listening to the broadcast. No, this is I call at 5:55. I don't actually listen. I just want to be on the show. Whatever. But seriously, call in. We'll get you on the air. 717-916-5189. Carl Rominger here answering, of course, all your questions. And I hope Michael Morrison, who made that intro, royalty-free, by the way, I might add. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I have emails to confirm that. The lawyer, ex-lawyer and me, being like, can we put that back and forth just to be sure? But we did that and made sure, But he said he would compose something original. So if you need a composer, need somebody to do a little music for you, I recommend, obviously, Michael Morrison, because I owe him a debt of gratitude. And, of course, if he wants to fool around and make some more stuff up, we can experiment with that as well. But I thought that was really cool because a little lead-in. It is tough to get rights-free music for these kinds of things. And what you would have to pay BMI and ASCAP and I don't want to make any of the comments that get people into trouble, so I'll just stay away from it. But nonetheless, you have to pay a lot of people a lot of money in order to break into the media empire. That's all there is to it. They've got it wrapped up. Wrap. It's a wrap. That's just the way it is. You get used to it after a while. So I had this great article, 16 Ways the Supreme Court Built the Police State and Destroyed Your Rights, posted on my Facebook page, because I didn't write it. John Whitehead is the guy who wrote it. I don't know what to tell you about him. I don't know a lot about him. I just know he wrote a hell of a great article. Now it's on like Freedom Outpost, which is a little to the right of somewhere where I am. But hey, whatever. If the individual is no longer to be sovereign, if the police can pick him up whenever they do not like the cut of his jib, if they can seize and search him in their discretion, we enter a new regime. The decision to enter it should be made only after a full debate by the people of this country. U.S. Supreme Court Justice William Douglas. Of course, that was a few years ago, right? And he starts out his article by saying this: the U.S. Supreme Court was intended to be an institution established to intervene and protect the people against the government and its agents when they overstep their bounds. His first sentence is interesting. It may or may not be the case. At least the purpose of the Supreme Court was, well, we don't know. The Supreme Court basically said in one of their first cases that we have the right to determine if a law is constitutional or unconstitutional, Marbury versus Madison. But it's not clear that that was what the founders wrote into the Constitution. It's just what the Supreme Court said they had power to do and what we've obeyed ever since. On the other hand, maybe the Supreme Court wasn't meant to have that power. It doesn't matter, because whatever happened, the founders were all still alive and nobody cried out and said this is impossible or improbable or completely, a few might have, but nonetheless, it wasn't a complete catastrophe when this happened. But I'm not sure that the Supreme Court was intended to be the institution to intervene and protect the people against the government when they overstepped their bounds at all instances. But they certainly asserted themselves as the final arbiter of the Constitution early on, and in fact became that. So, at least the first sentence I half agree with. He goes on to say, yet, as I point out in my book, A Government of Wolves, the Emerging American Police State, Americans can no longer rely on the courts to mete out justice. Okay, second line, he sells his book. And we can no longer rely on the court to mete out justice. I don't know whether you want to buy his book or not, but he's right about the second part. You Supreme Court of the United States. A lot of power, but not the guy you want to be in front of if you're looking for a little help with your rights. Now, this most recent decision this week, positive. They recognized, right, a right of privacy in the contents of your cell phone, that pursuant to a lawful arrest, the police cannot just thumb through and look at the data in your phone. They're going to need a separate warrant for that. Good. Practical effect, almost zero, except for the bad cops who are going to search your phone anyhow. And, of course, then they'll claim you consented. Let me explain how this goes down in court. Client, did you consent to the search of your cell phone? No. I told the cops not to look in it. Police officer. I asked him if I could look through his cell phone, and he consented after I Mirandized him. Oh. Now, you have a dash camera in your car, right, officer? Well, yes, I do have a dash camera in my car that records everything when it's working. What do you mean it's not working? Well, we pulled the digital video recording, the DVR. Don't call it a tape or they'll correct you. And for whatever reason, the computer broke. The only thing we were able to retrieve from the recording is some audio where the guy says he consents. Really? Oh, yeah. We went through everything, and for whatever reason, there was a bug or a virus or the surge or something happened, and the tape erased itself. But somehow we just have an audio. Now, I'm not making that up. I had an actual case where they stopped a guy on the side of the road, back when I was a practicing lawyer, who after 40 minutes of saying no, he wouldn't consent, eventually said, yes, I'll consent. Now, according to him, that was after they got out some, power tools and basically said they're going to start cutting into the car if he didn't hurry up and consent to a search of it and open the trunk. Now, it's his word against theirs, but magically, when we went to court, the tape was nowhere to be found. Oh, yeah, we had a tape, but we tried to copy it. When we tried to copy it, everything got erased, and all we got was the end of the 40 minutes, 2 minutes of audio where a guy says he'll consent to the search. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I've ever tried to copy a file, it rarely destroys the original. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? Copy it again, right? Oh, no, everything is destroyed except for 2 minutes of audio. I don't know how video turned into an audio, but hey, probably because they didn't want us to see the guy practically crying as he said it, or maybe them with the power tools threatening to cut into the car as he said it. I don't know. I mean, I can't explain it. Needless to say, the judge ultimately ruled in our favor. I think he found it odd, too, that the tape had erased itself. But hey, again, what do we know? These DVRs that the Pennsylvania State Police use are very tricky, and they may have a habit of doing that. On the other hand, they may not. Again, it's just hard to say. But my point is, and why I say this is, so the practical effect of the Supreme Court case is, as long as the cop is honest, which is 80% of the police, fine, great. They're not going to look through your phone. The 20% that want to, they're still going to look through your phone. But at least they don't just get a carte blanche free pass. They're going to have to get up on the stand and perjure themselves to justify what they did. Might slow a few of them down, might protect your cell phones. So I think that's a positive decision. I really do. 717-916-5189. Ye people who called before the show started, do you want me to call you back? I mean, what's your plan here exactly? I mean, I could always get you on the air. Well, it's always funny the guys that call early but then don't call in during the show. I'm going to have to figure out a way to chastise them somehow. So anyhow, this great article on the Supreme Court goes on, because I got so digressed there for a moment. Let's see. 2014, Plumhoff versus Rickard. The court declared police officers who used deadly force to terminate a car chase were immune from a lawsuit. Those accused of needlessly resorting to deadly force by shooting multiple times at a man and his passenger in a stopped car, killing both individuals. The court said, yeah, but they have qualified immunity, so they're immune from lawsuit. Even though the car was stopped, they didn't really know the guy was going to stop, so it may have been negligent for them to shoot, but qualified immunity means negligence alone is not enough to stop them. Next case. Navarrete versus California, 2014. Police officers can stop cars based on anonymous tips. 5-4 ruling. The court declared police officers can, under the guise of reasonable suspicion, stop cars and question drivers based solely on anonymous tips, no matter how dubious, and whether they themselves witnessed any troubling behaving. That came on the heels of a ruling by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in U.S. versus Westhaven that driving too carefully with a rigid posture, taking a scenic route, and having acne are sufficient reasons for police officers to suspect you're doing something illegal. It's right. Driving too carefully with a rigid posture. Well, I was behind a guy and he seemed stiff, which led me to believe that he was nervous that I was behind him. And then I noticed that he wasn't weaving at all and he used his blinkers at all the intersection. Now listen, I'm not making this up, and this goes all the way back to 1998. I heard police officer testifying in court that the guy drove too carefully. In other words, he said, I had reason to believe that the guy was DUI because I was behind him and it was a lighted area, so he knew that there was a cop car behind him, and he wasn't weaving at all, and he didn't weave for a mile, and he used his blinkers at all the appropriate points. And I just knew he was just driving carefully because he had something to hide. So that gave me a reasonable suspicion to believe that DUI is a fight. You get these court decisions? Am I the only one? Am I the only one that gets this upset about this? That if you don't use your blinker and you dodge and you weave or your tire hits the white line 3 times, well, then the government has the right to intrude and search your car. On the other hand, if you don't hit the white line and you use your blinkers, then they know that you're just driving carefully because they're behind you. And that means, what does that mean? That means you have something to hide, because otherwise you would have done something that gave them probable cause. Does anybody see the circular trap here? Does anybody see that no matter what you do, the police are going to be found to have reasonable suspicion, probable cause, justifiable basis, reasonable basis, whatever legal bullshit the court's going to use at the moment? Do you understand that? They're going to just hide behind that so that the police state, the state we live in, the United States of America, where we overthrew King George for being too powerful, too controlling, the country where millions of soldiers have shed their lives over the years to defend the freedoms, have come to a position now where courts with a straight face will say that by obeying the law, you gave the police officer reason to intrude upon you. Am I the only one that gets mad about this? Am I the only one? I don't know. 717-916-5189. Happy to have you call in. Happy to talk to you. See what you want to say. If you want to defend the Supreme Court, a couple of my Facebook friends, I know their shtick can pretty much predict it. Anytime you post a case like that, they'd be like, well, I never do anything wrong, so I have nothing to hide from the police state. Hey, idiot. The Founding Fathers had something to hide from the police state. I guess you'll never do anything like the Founding Fathers either, you dweeb. All right, anyhow. In Wood v. Moss, I'm going to get a caller. Look at this. I must have yelled enough. That's how it works. Talk radio. Caller, you're on the air. Hey, what's up?
Hey, Dwayne from Etown.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Living the dream.
Yeah.
Hey, just a little thing I noticed through my life.
Yes.
Did you notice that police cars do not say to protect and serve anymore?
That is interesting, because my brother once took advantage of that when he knocked on the side of the police car and asked him for a ride back up to the campus. And the cops were like, what are you talking about? He says, well, it says protect and serve on here. I thought I'd hit you up on the serve function.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah, I just noticed, I've been noticing stuff like that, and it just, you were talking about the police state or the cops becoming, the cops are becoming militaristic.
Well, and let me tell you something very interesting. I posted this article. It's only in the last couple of years. These 16 cases in the last couple of years have completely eviscerated a lot of rights. And John Roberts has been on it and whatnot. And in the cases that haven't gone against us, it's the swing vote, Kennedy. It's the liberals who are usually in the dissent on these, by the way.
Okay.
Kennedy's the swing vote who's protected us in a few of these. And Brian, who's a resident atheist who was on last Sunday to tell us why there was no God and all that good stuff that he does, which I have a whole thought on atheists here in a minute, but we're going to talk about that. But, and he pointed out on Facebook in response to this post in this article, he said, you know, the one thing that's weird for conservatives is it's only been the liberal justices who keep voting to prevent this stuff. There'd be, you know, half a dozen more decisions that would have gone against individual rights, but blame it on the rain. I'm going to blame it on the rain. I lost you, Dwayne. I'm going to blame it on the rain. Anyhow, yeah, Scalia, Thomas, I mean, the whole thing is just crazy. The Supreme Court cannot be depended upon to protect the little guy anymore. Dwayne, feel free to call back, and I apologize I lost you there. You know how these crazy internet connections are. I'm actually thinking about experimenting with just piping everything through AT&T right up through the airwaves on the cell phone. We'll see what happens. I keep getting these little blips in Comcast. So, anyhow, let's go back to our little list of cases. Dwayne, again, feel free to call back in. 717-916-5189, by the way. 717-516-5189. Let's see here. Secret Service agents not accountable for their actions as long as they're done in the name of security. Wood v. Moss, 2014. Grant qualified immunity to Secret Service officials who relocated anti-Bush protesters by concerns that the protesters' First Amendment rights for speech were being hurt. In that particular case, the Secret Service and Wood v. Moss moved the anti-Bush protesters but kept the pro-Bush people in their free speech area. So the anti-Bush people had one speech area, the pro-Bush people had another speech area. They are both near the president. They moved the anti-ones away. But here was what was particularly problematic. There was something going on with Bush and the war and all this sort of stuff. So magically, when you watch the TV, you see everybody going, yay, war, beat up on Iraq, yeah, there's weapons of mass destruction there. And then when the other people are holding up their signs to say, wait, what war? Why are we there? There's no weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, those people had to move, so we didn't see them on camera. You know, why would we do that? We wouldn't want. Well, they thought, you know, and the Secret Service's argument is, by the way, people who are anti-Bush are more dangerous than people who are pro-Bush. So once again, think about this. More logic for the police state. If you voted for the president and you blindly support the president and you think Sarah Palin's a genius, you get to jump around in one square and say, yay, 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 go Bush, yay, 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 go Obama, yay, 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 go whoever it is that I love. But if you think the president's an idiot, if you want to say, boo, I don't think Obama's an American, I think he was born in Kenya, or you want to say, boo, I think Bush is an idiot for taking us into a war where there turned out to be no weapon of mass destruction just because Cheney wanted Halliburton to get a big contract. Oh, wait, did I say that? If you say that, well, you're dangerous, you're seditious, you're more inclined to be somebody we can't have near the president. We can't have you appearing on camera near the president, can we? No. Great. Supreme Court, 2014, Wood v. Moss. Citizens only have a right to remain silent if they assert it. In that one, you have to specifically invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination in avoiding to have to refuse to answer police questions and not have it used against you. So in that case, the guy said he didn't want to answer, but he didn't specifically say he was invoking his right to remain silent. And the court said, well, if he didn't tell them that he was invoking his right to remain silent, then his silence can and would be used against him. Complete reversal of what everybody thought. Salinas v. Texas, 2013. So now you got to be like, I don't want to talk. Yes, I want. Oh, you don't want to talk? Okay, we'll just write that down. And then when you go to court, they're going to say, and he refused to answer any questions. Put him in jail, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because I'm the prosecutor. And I'm telling you, his right to remain silent was invoked in bad faith because he didn't specifically point out his Fifth Amendment with a sixth grade education. He's probably an illegal alien because he has a remotely sounding Hispanic name. Okay. by the way, if you want to get on the air, 717-916-5189. I'm just telling you how it is. Okay, let's keep going through our pain and misery here. Police have free reign to use drug-sniffing dogs as search warrants on leashes. Justifying any and all police searches of vehicles stopped on the roadside in Florida v. Harris, 2013. A unanimous court determined that police officers may use highly unreliable drug-sniffing dogs to conduct warrantless searches of cars during routine traffic stops. Again, a warrantless search of your car during a routine traffic stop by a drug-sniffing dog. You guys seen the video where the guy... Have you seen the video that I'm talking about? Where the guy has the dog... oh, boy. The guy has the dog, and he's telling him that he's searching for drugs, and you see the guy tap the car, the handler. And then you see the drug alert where he tapped the car as he goes by. Of course, he didn't know there's a camera there. Yeah, highly reliable. Very interesting. Maryland v. King, 2013. Police can forcibly take your DNA upon arrest, not upon conviction. Supreme Court said DNA samples may be extracted from people arrested for serious offenses. The court claimed it's based upon concerns of properly identifying criminal suspects upon arrest. Complete bullshit again. Police can stop, search, question, and profile citizens and non-citizens alike. Supreme Court declared in Arizona versus United States, 2012, that Arizona police officers have broad authority to stop, search, and question individuals, citizen or non-citizen alike. While the law prohibits police officers from considering age, race, color, or national origin, it amounts to little more than perfunctory non-discrimination laws in the book. Basically says, hey, if we have reason to believe, you need to prove your immigration status. This goes right towards what the federal government does with these border patrol immigration zones where they sit 100 miles inland from a border, pull you over, and ask you where you're from, what you're doing, sort of stuff to determine if you're, legal or illegal. And I know some of my crazies out there, some of my crazy listeners. And by the way, if you're one of the crazy listeners who wants to get in on the conversation, 717-916-5189. I know some of you guys think that, all Mexican people are illegals. I know some of you think that all Hispanic people might be illegals, and so somehow that justifies a search. But how about just pulling over white people and asking them where they're from? How do you feel about that? Oh, that ain't fair. What's that about? I can't possibly be illegal with skin as white as mine. What? Okay, good. Glad you think that way. Of course, if you have a more refined viewpoint, I'm always happy to discuss it. I posted a little thing about immigration tonight, and I see lots of talk on Facebook, but nobody ever wants to call it. Nobody ever wants to put their voice behind it. It's one thing to type a few snide lines. 717-916-5189. 717-916-5189. By the way, I thank Michael Morrison again for that great intro. We're going to use that as outro too. Happy to do that. So anyhow, back to where we were on this great piece on the Supreme Court. By the way, I think we should go back there anyhow. But I want to talk about immigration for a second. But no, I digress. I'll get back to the immigration piece here in a minute. I think I'll have to go back there, though. I really do. I'm looking here, though. See, let me read you some of these comments. Like, oh, we won the war against Mexico, so they should stay. All that great stuff. Like, really? Really, that's the best you got? We won the war against Mexico? Does anybody know how the war against Mexico started? Let me explain a few things to you guys. We fought a war with Mexico because magically we happened to be well inside their country when they decided to defend themselves. Now, you may say, Carl, what are you talking about? You may say, how could you possibly say that about them? How could you tell me that we were the aggressors? Well, has anybody heard of manifest destiny? Manifest destiny. Anybody know what that is? I'll tell you what it is. It was a notion in America. Remember last week we talked about how the settlers believed that by planting crops, the plow will follow the rain. That, in other words, if you plant crops, you can force rain to come into an area. That was some early environmental wackies who, of course, sold politicians and all kinds of people on the idea, and American people on the idea that they didn't have global warming, global cooling then. What they had was the plow. The rain follows the plow. And, of course, it was for a decade the national certitude in climate science. Well, Polk had something called manifest destiny. It's the idea that God wanted America to expand all the way from the East Coast to the West Shore. To the West Shore. West Coast. West Shore sounds like Mechanicsburg. The West Coast. From here to California. Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny was kind of a quasi-religious idea. Oh, you're bashing on religion again, Carl. I'm telling you, they believed that God had ordained that America would expand, and I'm sure some of you, the same people that think that Jesus handed the founding fathers the Constitution, would think, yes, that must have been what happened. God wanted America to expand because we're his chosen. No, the Jews are his chosen people, you dummies. We are not his chosen people. Remember? Israel is the chosen people of God. America is not. Oh, we're the lost tribe. Okay, I forgot. Anyhow, long story short, Polk and Americans of that day and age believed that, we were supposed to expand, manifest destiny. So the Mexicans thought the border was way up north, and America thought the border was Rio Grande. So we just sent troops down to the Rio Grande. And yes, the Mexicans fired the first shot. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a war of aggression by America. I don't care if it's a war of aggression by America, and I'm not going to cry about it. But to just simply rewrite history and forget that we were the aggressors, that's just typical. That's just typical of what I see, where people want to rewrite history and pretend that America, Mexico attacked us and we took their territory as part of the war, but we wouldn't have taken it but for the fact that there was a war. And I think at the end of the day, you have to realize that, in fact, we would have gone into Mexico no matter what. We were on a manifest destiny. God had sent us from the East Coast to the West Coast, and that's what America was doing. And that's the history of the time. So when some of the Mexican Americans, which I like, saying, like, hey, if I'm Mexican and American, I'm not really illegal, I'm just back to where I belong. We did force a lot of people out of America. Now with the Indians, of course, I'm sorry, Redskins. Oh, wait, you can't say that because that's the name of a football team that's in trouble. Native Americans, with those folks, we did put some on reservations, right? Because we were just being kinder and gentler and whatever else you might want to say from the time frame. I guess that's what we were doing. I don't know. Maybe that's what we were doing. I think I had another call coming in here. See if we get this guy on the air. 717-916-5189 to get live on the air. And we'll see. I think I missed a caller there because that's how that goes.
Hello?
Hey, we thought we missed you there. You're back on the air.
Wow. Hey, how are you?
Good. What's going on?
Good. Well, I just wanted to, defend or just defend what I put on Facebook. I wasn't trying to say regarding the Mexican Alamo, the war, Mexican-American War, that the Americans or the Polish had nothing to do with it. I was just answering the question that you had posted.
Oh no, I wasn't singling you out at all. But I do find it interesting that the girl that's holding up the sign in the picture we have where she's protesting, and I'm trying to remember what that sign says, because I can never remember this stuff when I want to. Maybe early onset of what, if I say early onset Alzheimer's, I'll sound like I'm making fun of autistic kids or something. I don't want to be charged with that.
Anymore. But if you think Mexicans are illegal, all Mexicans, something like that.
Yeah, if you think I'm illegal because I'm a Mexican, learn the true history because I'm in my homeland.
Right.
And California, Texas, that whole southern area, up until the Mexican-American War, where we pushed the Mexicans out. We decided that was our area, and under Polk, it was manifest destiny. Now, listen, you could redraw the world under historical borders again and again and again and again and again. So I'm not in favor of redrawing Europe back to where the borders used to be. We've created the Middle East the way it is. That's a complete European creation, the borders there. Those were all colonial borders negotiated somewhere in Europe to later satisfy colonial interests, and then we try to enforce those, and of course we left behind warlords and whatnot, which is why they have terrible strife over there this day, because we sort of batched everybody together the wrong way. But hey, what do I know? And then we just kind of created Israel out of whole cloth because we kept losing the Crusades, but after World War II, we decided we're just going to win the Crusades this time around. But anyhow, my point is, I'm not for redrawing historical borders. I understand the idea that it's American territory now and whatnot, but I do think it would be probably, and I'm not betting on this, but I would say if I drove out to Clive Bundy's ranch and I grabbed a bunch of these right-wing Clive Bundy, supporters, and started quizzing them about which portions of America were once part of Mexico, they'd be dumbfounded. Oh, wait, you mean, that was never part of Mexico. Well, actually, they did have Islamics in America at the turn of the signing of the Constitution. Did you know that? Oh, wait, what does that have to do with that? Nothing. I just thought I'd throw that in there to really confuse you. Anyhow, am I typecasting them? Yes, a little bit, but I just like the sign because I think it points out, which is that it's not linear. The slave trade was a slave trade. The Indians were driven out of America. We kicked them off all the good land every time we discovered something we liked there. I'm not about to pay reparations. Personally, I'm not paying it, but I understand the lack of trust that might exist out there, and I understand the sign because it just struck me as funny.
I gotcha. I think too. One of the things I said was, I'm not a history buff at all. I know, I'm sure, very little compared to what you know, but I just don't live in that to bring it up all the time.
Right.
And I think that's what happens a lot now, that everyone wants to go back on, hey, this is what happened, 100 years ago, or more, and this is what should happen now, and hey, you're saying, I just think that's kind of like, well, it doesn't make one bit of a difference in this day and age if you get right down to it. It's what we do now and how. And I would be dumbfounded if I talked to a human being that thought all Mexicans were illegal. But I'm sure that you have a lot of followers or people you're saying that feel that way. That would, but I can't believe somebody would actually be that way. But I'm sure that there are.
I don't think that everybody literally believes that, but there are, and like I say, I like to hyperbolize the situation, but nonetheless, you hear it. The Mexicans are stealing my jobs. No, dude, no. A bad economy is stealing your job.
Right.
The government's run the inflation and all the other bad governmental choices have run the economy into the ground. But hey, if you want to blame the brown person, the government's fine with that. They're happy all the way to the bank on that one because you're still going to vote for them at the end of the year.
Right. Do you think that speaking of this type of topic, do you think immigration is going to be a big player in the 2016 presidential election?
Maybe. But here's the reality. All the Democrats have to do is pick somebody who's moderate on immigration, which is an easy candidate for them. And the Republicans are going to get tripped up on immigration again because strong anti-immigration sentiments are very powerful in certain wings of the Republican Party, but they don't resonate across America. And I don't care what people tell you, whether they think that's the truth or not. The Democrats are going to vote Democrat, and the Republicans are going to vote Republican. And if the Republicans don't want to vote for somebody because they think they're soft on immigration, the moderates are going to vote for them because majority of people are somewhere in between on immigration. They're not hands in the air screaming about illegal immigrants and worried about that as a general gist. And from what I've seen, what I've read in the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, there's a very strong anti-immigration faction that exists in the Republican Party. But it doesn't, if that becomes a litmus test issue, they don't win on that. What are you going to do with the 9 million illegals that are already here? So I see this picture somebody put up in response to the picture I put up where they're like, I think that if anybody's crossed the border illegally, they should never become a citizen. They should be deported. Great. Ain't going to work. In fact, if you deport all the current illegals, see, nobody seems to understand how economies work. But go ahead, let's deport all 9 million illegals overnight. That's 9 million people who aren't working on the economy in any way, shape, or form. When you remove 9 million consumers from the economy overnight, absolutely and completely, we're going to crash our economy that way. I mean that's the long-term effect. I mean, it seems silly to say, right? Oh, they're here illegally and we don't want them. Well, good, take them out. See where that leaves you. Leaves you with 9 million less people buying stuff.
Does that open up a lot of jobs? I mean, I'm just asking some cool stuff.
Yeah, let me ask you. I'll tell you. So my good friend Bill Maher, and I as I'd say facetiously, my good friend Bill Maher, but he did a thing where he went and picked apples for a day, right? Because they had an $8 an hour apple picking job up in New York State. And you know who they traditionally employ, right? Is seasonal workers, illegal aliens, people who drift around, what they call migrant workers, I think. But, we've been cracking down on the illegals and made it harder to come into America, and there's less migrants going back and forth up and down the coast. So the apple farmers up in New York were looking for a little extra help. So, they have $8 an hour jobs. And Bill Maher went. And, of course, his joke was he went to pick apples to prove that nobody wants to pick the apples. Like, in other words, it's him and a couple Latino guys picking apples. And why is that? Because there's not one unemployed guy in the state of New York who can get off his ass and climb up a ladder and pick an apple if he's white. And so the question is, are these jobs stealing from the average American? And the answer is probably not. Even when I was practicing, I'd hear people like, well, I can't find a job, Have you gone to the Sheetz? Yeah. Have you gone to the McDonald's?
Well, I think that's part of it is a stigma. You know what I mean? People think, that job, it goes to migrant workers. It's too low for me. Even
right. It's a stigma, right? They don't want to make the low amounts of money. And they'd rather not work because we have this great social welfare system that,
you can make much more at.
Keeps you happy. And so, the one mistake that we've made as a country, and some of the economists have talked about this, is it's fine to let illegal immigrants steal jobs. It's fine to let low-cost, quasi-illegal immigrants to steal jobs, low-end jobs, as long as you don't provide a social safety net to them. It's a win-win for the economy, right? Our mistake is we started to extend our social safety net to illegal immigrants. Rick Perry, no less than Rick Perry, is down in Texas defending, remember during the presidential campaign, defending college tuition to illegal immigrants, in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. They wanted to run him as the Tea Party candidate for president of the United States. And even he's defending his state's in-state tuition breaks to illegal immigrants to college, right? Mm-hmm. That should tell you where we're really at on immigration. You can make up as much fire and brimstone as you want when the rubber meets the road in states like Florida, where Jeb Bush is, in states like Texas, in states like Arizona, Arizona has some pretty harsh measures, but even those, some of their harsher measures have been vetoed by their governor. Because the reality is, where the rubber meets the road, it doesn't work. There's stories in Alabama about these catfish plants. They have a big catfish processing facility. Government came in and raided out something like 700 illegals, And they're going to Atlanta and offering to bus people in from Atlanta and all over, but nobody wants to make that job paid like $9 or $11 an hour, and nobody wants to go clean catfish all day for $11 an hour because they'd rather sit in Atlanta and watch the sun shine down on the pavement than get on a bus and go work for $11 an hour. And again, are illegal immigrants really stealing jobs? I don't know. I'm just giving you the anecdotal evidence. I can tell you when economists crunch the numbers, it's complicated because, an illegal immigrant, for instance, who gets social welfare uses up Medicaid or Medicare, and they use up emergency room visits and those sorts of things. But do they not contribute? And they do contribute. Actually, they contribute quite a bit.
So you think that, economically wise, I don't want to say it evens out, so I'm sure it's not anywhere even, but with all the social programs out there that they receive, which I know of a few, the money that they're not getting, that doesn't how would that bankrupt?
Yeah,
I
understand that. And even if they are receiving more money than they're putting into the economy, removing them from the economy will still decrease spending, which will still cause a lack of expansion. So you still have the velocity of money. So if they're living off welfare and spending the welfare, they're still creating economy. Remember, it's Kraft and lots of other big companies who make sure that sugar water is still available on your food stamp card, right? Because that makes the economy go. I got another caller in here. Who have we got with us?
This is Gigi from the West Shore.
Now we got Gigi.
Listen, the American people's too damn lazy. That's the problem. I know people in the hood across the river that would go gladly pick apples. Problem is they live in the hood. There ain't no jobs over in the hood. And to get to a job, you got to get on the CAT over there, or whatever the bus is called, and you got to take it from there all the way to Carlisle for a 2-hour ride. It takes about 25 minutes. Okay,
right.
You got to do that each way. Now, when you have kids, you can't take an 8-hour-a-day job, and you can't take 4 hours worth of your day to travel back and forth to work. But if you was closer and you could get to work and there was stuff going on, there would be some more jobs for these people. And I know people that would do them jobs, and them picking jobs, and I know it's hard work, but guess what? You don't get anywhere in life unless you put in hard work and effort. And people just want to sit back, and they think they can go to school and go to college and get out of school and sit back and press their fingers on keyboards, and they're going to make $80,000, $90,000 a year. That ain't how life is. Life is through hard work and determination, and people have to do those jobs in order to make the economy grow. And that's just the way it is, Carl. These immigrants, they got to get out. Them kids, they got to get out. Who are we to take people's kids from them? Who are we to dictate whether or not it's in the best interest of the child? We're not God. We don't run the world. We're just a country over here trying to survive, and we are barely doing that.
I hear you, Gigi. Well, that's another question, right? I mean, and this is the part where nobody wants to give it any serious consideration. When we settled this country to turn it into America, there were people living here. We just kicked them the hell out, and we didn't care. We said God said it's okay, so it's okay.
When we came to this country, there was probably maybe 2 people every 100 miles. I mean,
no,
miles
actually,
of land. I mean, you think about those Indians. There was tribes. There was, all these people that was here. Okay.
Here's what we know now. I've read 2 books I want people to read. If you ever go to the bookstore or the library, so get 1491 and get 1493. Remember 1492, right? Well, 1499 is like, what did the old world look like, the new world look like before Columbus got here? And 1493 is what happened right after he got here. There was actually a lot of people living here. There's a lot more people here than people think. There were millions of people living here.
Oh, there was people here.
Millions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Millions, okay. But what happened in the past is past.
But
We can't sit here and dictate what happened in the past when we're trying to live for the future.
But I understand. But to judge the people who come here illegally, to say they're scum or they're dirty or they're bad.
That would be like you, Carl. You have a job at Pepsi, then all of a sudden it's bought out by Coke. Are you not going to follow Coke's rules? That's your employer now. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
But the point I'm trying to stress is the people who are here now, our generations, the past at least 3, 4 generations, 5 generations of people that's been here, really don't have nothing to do with this. Okay, that we're here and it was made. This is the way it was made. These are the laws that was made, and this is what we're supposed to defend. I didn't lose family members. I didn't have family members go fight in wars for hundreds of years to just say, open up the floodgates and let people in. You may as well just let them come in off the coast, too, and fire the Coast Guard, because let them come in on boats. Let the Cubans come. Let anybody who can float their way on the shore come on over. Do you know what kind of debris would be in the seas? I'm just saying, this is it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So let me ask you a question. Why is it then that we have a rule that says if you're from Cuba and you can sail a boat or a raft or a dinghy or hang along to a piece of wood for 60 miles and make it to the Florida coast and get your pinky toe on the sand, you get permanent status in the United States?
For entertainment purposes only.
Right, because we want to screw the
communists. They want to watch people float in dinghies and car hoods and anything they can get to float, and they go out there. They
by the way,
half the time too.
By the way, my same people, God bless all you, by the way. Every last one of you, but you guys crack me up to no end, and I'll tell you why. 717-916-5189, by the way. The reason you guys crack me up to no end is all the same people who were doing conniptions about Bill Clinton and Janet Reno sending Alien back to Cuba, right? Remember that? Remember the picture with the guy with the gun and the grandma holding the kid and whatever, and we got to send Alien back to Cuba? Are the same people who are like, Obama's destroying America by letting the kids stay. Obama's destroying America by letting the kids stay. Oh, yeah? But you guys wanted to have Clinton impeached and Janet Reno strung up and shot for sending Elian Gonzalez back. God bless you.
You should know by now, Carl, that I don't believe in that government stuff. I don't believe in Republicans and Democrats.
And I'm not beating up on you, dude. I was just going off on the whole world.
I know that. But I'm saying, like, in the people I hear calling in talking about, it's the Democrats that want to do it. It's the Republicans that want. It has nothing to do with either of those. That really gives me a headache when I hear people talk about it, because it's a pointless conversation. Republicans and Democrats, they may as well throw them terms out the windows. It really don't matter who's in there. There's a plan. They have to play the plan out, or they're not in office no more. Once it's a group, either you're going to go with us and do what we're supposed to do, or you're not going to be in office and reap all these benefits.
Right.
That's really what they do. You look at the presidents of the past that didn't get along with it, and senators and so on and so forth. So it's just ridiculous. I don't know. We can't take care of our own people. I just seen on the news where Texas, all the Red Crosses down there are full of kids. Full of kids. There's nowhere to go. God forbid you was born in this country, homeless, and needed somewhere to go. Guess what? You're going to turn away at the Red Cross because they got the illegals in there. Don't make sense. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. I got to get back to work. Thanks for your time.
All right,
Carl.
boss. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Oh, my goodness. Well, what do you think there? How would you react to Gigi?
I think I need a minute to process. No, I honestly think that he does bring up some good points. He's very passionate about what he says. I can say that.
Yeah, no, and hey, what do I know?
You know a lot.
What do I know? No, I agree with I agree with Gigi. You know, it's sort of like, you know, it is what it is now.
That's how I see things, because there's nothing we can do about the past. We can, it would be like today saying, oh, well, hey, this is the way people treated black people back then, and it's, you know, it's the whole race, it's all that stuff. There's nothing you can do about that, absolutely nothing. There's only stuff you can do now, you know, learn from it and get better and move on. So, I don't know, just the whole immigration thing for me, it just seems like there's a process, and that process should be followed. And there's reasons why that process, those processes and those laws are in place.
You sound like the mayor of a small town in Germany explaining why we should let the Jews go on the train back in...
Me?
But I'm saying, isn't that the same explanation? There's a process. The government says that this is the way it is, and there's a process. And
well, I should say that those laws are put into place for a good reason. Don't you think? I mean, and it's not, they're not hurting anybody. They're not killing anybody.
Oh, wait. Well, okay. But they didn't tell you they were killing the Jews. Remember that. What about the Japanese being interred? You know, we just got to round up everybody with slanty eyes and send them to an internment camp because they might be in conspiracy with the Japanese mainland.
You never know.
You see how the same arguments, and I always like to play devil's advocate on those, and I'm not really accusing you of anything. I like to say that because it's easy how the same logic can just take one little step, and all of a sudden you're all in favor of all the things that we all claim to be to abhor, because once somebody is the problem. Now, on the other hand, and I'm going to toot my own horn, I start to see on the Twitter the other day Nancy Pelosi saying, "Wow, there's a crisis with these kids, and we need to do something about it." And you know, remember, I think Sunday last week or Wednesday, I think Wednesday night, I was mumbling about how somebody said, well, why? And I said, well, maybe Obama wants to create a crisis, overwhelm the child welfare system, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no, we can't just deport everybody because it's killing the child welfare system. And I was like, dude, I was 2 days ahead of that, right?
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. I was 2 days ahead of I think if you listen to the show, I'm just saying, if you listen to the show, you could be 2